as many of you will not be surprised, I'm not really going to talk about technologies, because I don't really do technologies, I do humans. I liked it when Alex said I'm not a huge fan of humans. I know what he meant. I once heard a very senior person from the International Energy Agency give a presentation that was entirely about technology saving the world. And I questioned the person afterwards and said, what about the human angle? And he just said, I don't trust humans because they don't do what you want them to. So I think we need to think about the people side of it if the transformation that we want is going to happen. And I reflected on our title today, Transformative Technologies. And I suppose the first question that came to my mind is, what exactly is the transformation that we want? We often tend to think about it in terms of a transformation to a low-carbon energy system and frame it exactly like that, which leads us to the wrong answer. Because it leads us to say, in buildings terms, we need to reduce energy demand. I've no problem with that as an idea. But for us to do that, the buildings that we produce at the end of the transformation have to be buildings that the people inside them, A, want, B, enjoy, and C, actually use in the way we kind of want them to use them, rather than fighting the building, which often happens in a high-tech commercial building at the moment. We need to think about how lower energy demand in buildings interacts with low carbon supply. How do we transform the two together? What are the systems? What is the sensible policy framework that lets the person in the building participate in this transition that we're trying to develop, whilst, to the extent possible, choosing the thing that they most want? Because unless we can do that, people won't do what we want them to do when we won't deliver the transition. What about delivering better energy services as well as a low-carbon system at the same time? Better thermal comfort. We tend to start the discussion around a high-energy performance building from the idea that it delivers thermal comfort. And then we go and define that as a temperature in a living room and a different temperature around the rest of the house. Have you ever come across anybody who expresses being thermally comfortable as a temperature? It's about airflow, it's about feeling cozy, it's probably linked to the lighting in the room, it's linked to the ventilation in the room, it's linked to whether or not there's damp in the corner of the room. It's not about, is that room at 21 degrees C? But yet, when we try to design the transformed building, that's where we start from, which I think is wrong. What about hassle-free entertainment? It's all very well having, I don't know, some kind of super energy efficient Netflix system, but if it actually doesn't come on when you want it to, you're going to hate it. So we need to define all the elements of the service that we as human beings are looking for before we can transform the systems that deliver them. And I think we need to think innovatively about that. Not only how we define the services, but also how we communicate them to consumers and to people so that they drive the transition we're looking for rather than get dragged kicking and screaming. I've already talked about thermal comfort and it not being about temperature. What's more attractive to a householder? Lower energy bills or actually not having to faff with drafts and damp? We always talk about one and actually people care about the other. And you take that to its logical conclusion, what on earth is the point of an energy performance certificate from a consumer's perspective? We don't tell people what's good about a high energy performance building. The next thing that I think we need to think about, and this has already been mentioned by Debbie, is how might the technical innovations that we're getting all excited about actually change our demands for energy services. And if I think about homes, it's many different ways, but sometimes a technical innovation will simply increase our demand for that service. Washing machines have not reduced the time we spend washing clothes, they've just meant we do it more. microwaves and freezers as a combo have actually completely changed the way that we cook. We would cook very differently at home if we didn't have that combination of technologies. And thinking ahead, and again, this is what was mentioned in the transport section, what is Alexa going to do to the practices around shopping? I mean, it's not going to do it in my house because I wouldn't dream of having one of the things in there, but, for a lot of people. I've heard somebody talking about his grandfather who's stuck at home and spends all his time shopping on Amazon for crap that he doesn't need because he's got a little machine that will do it really easily for him. So before we assume that an innovation is good, we really need to think about how we are going to use it. And that's where we don't trust humans, because we never know how we're going to use it, do we? Of course we're going to need innovation in technologies. There's easy examples to talk about around homes. We do need better, thinner, cheaper solid wall insulation. That's a no-brainer, we need that. And it's interesting that the government's construction sector grand challenge frames that in terms of simply cheaper. We want to reduce the cost of delivering high energy performance buildings by 50%. I have no argument with that. I think that's a great, great challenge. But what about all the rest of the stuff I've just talked about? What about it being better as well as cheaper? We also, I think, need to think about, rather than simply getting overexcited about the latest new thing, how do we combine the old with the new? How do we take an offering to the householder that really encourages them to do the really boring stuff that we already know how to do? A lot of it is the building fabric stuff, alongside having the whizzy control system on their heating system, or the PV with the battery, all the stuff that really excites people. How do you present it in an innovative business model that gets people to do all of it rather than just the exciting stuff? We will have to do that if we're going to get our buildings as low carbon as we need them to be. Where do I think the biggest opportunity lies, maybe, in all this piece? I think, again, it's been mentioned already in the transport panel, data. We define warmth as 21 degrees C because we don't know how to do it any better. And yet now we are getting such new sources of data that might help us do that, and I think we really need to use them. We often simply do not understand properly how the system, which is the building and the people in it, works. So we don't design the optimal systems to deliver that thermal comfort. We've got all this data coming from smart metering. Are we going to use it properly? Are we going to get access to it to use it properly? That would be quite nice. And we do have, of course, we do have the computing power. I don't know if any of you have seen a guy called Nick Worth give a presentation on his computational fluid dynamics. He used to use it for designing Formula One race cars. He now uses it to look at energy use in buildings. And I am not that excited by technology normally, but his computer models are really whizzy. They're really quite fun. That sort of technology can help us to understand what's going on inside a building so much better. We just need to use it right. But we need to be careful about what we do with the data and how positive it is. City Mapper, Alex mentioned City Mapper. I use it all the time. I think it's fantastic. And I agree that if it stops the old lady standing at the bus stop for 10 minutes with no bus, it's brilliant. But my daughter used to use it to figure out what time to leave the house to get the bus to school. Now, when I went to school, it was a completely stress-free experience. I was never quite sure when the bus was going to turn up, so I left plenty of time, walked out of the house, got on the bus, got to school. Every single morning we had there's a bus 5 minutes away. Right, I better get my coat on. Oh no, hang on, that bus has disappeared. Oh no, hang on, there's the bus 10 minutes away now. Oh my God, I'm going to be late. The level of stress around that journey was on another planet compared to what it had been when I was doing it. So we've got to get the data right, and we've got to get the way we present it to the user right. I think that's enough from me. So, to summarise, We need some technical innovation, but I think we need to innovate our approaches and our understanding more. We've got lots of tools that are going to help us develop this. I just think we need to make more and better use of them. Thank you.